Hello, and welcome to this week's Weekly Lift. I am Latoya Logan, and we are back to continue our 8-week wellness series. Today, we are focusing on social wellness. So, we are going to examine the 8 dimensions of wellness throughout this series, and I'm really excited to be at social wellness because this is definitely an area that I think most adults struggle with, but we struggle in silence because we're expected to really know how to engage, how to create healthy relationships, especially friendships, when the truth is we don't. Most of us, our relationships have been the result of proximity. Who we grew up with, who's in our family, who may have been in our place of worship, who we work with. So all of our friendships have been just by purely because they're close to us. So how do we build a social wellness practice that is reflective of our goals, our aspirations, our need for fun and pleasure? And that has to be intentional, and typically we have not been very intentional. So we always start out with the definition. So social wellness is building and engaging in trusting, respectful, and authentic relationships. Authentic relationships. And what exactly does it mean to have an authentic relationship? I think most people believe that they are currently engaging in an authentic way because, well, I'm doing what I'm doing. What could be realer than what I'm doing? And I understand that. So I facilitated training on boredom, loneliness, and apathy. And when we talk about loneliness, I defined what are the 3 components to experiencing loneliness. The first is social capital, the second is social network, and the third is social isolation. So social wellness comprises our ability to maintain and build relationships, interact with individuals, engage, share, and grow through those experiences. But that is all contingent upon our social capital, social network, and social isolation. So social capital would be all of those unique characteristics that make you who you are, things that would make you attractive to another person. So do you have a sense of humor? Do you have a nurturing spirit? Are you a problem solver? Are you a fighter? Are you educated? Do you have a stable job? Do you have a strong spiritual or faith basis? People look to others for things that attract them based on whatever might be their personal goals or what matters most to them. So your social capital is truly you. What do you bring to the table that is attractive or is engaging to another person where you can build something upon that? The second part is social network. And this is really about our lines of connection into the world that would make it possible for us to build on or showcase our social capital. So if you are a person who goes to school, then you have a place, a point where there are many people where you could make friendships or even have associateships. If you work, that's a place. If you go to the gym, that's a place. If you volunteer somewhere, if you go to your place of worship, if you belong to a block club, these are all places that support our social network. It's not that you currently have a strong support system or a base in those places, it's that you could have. It's an access point for you to meet other people, to build on a relationship, to have exchanges and releases, to share ideas. And the third aspect or component to this social wellness is social isolation. And it really is, how often are we isolated from others? Now, we're not just talking about physical isolation. We're talking about the feeling of belonging. So do we feel as though there is a place that we belong, where our identity is lifted, where even if we make a mistake, forgiveness is extended, where someone is checking in on you as much as you are checking out on others? So it isn't really even about the number of people in your life, it's about the quality of those relationships and whether or not they support and make you feel affirmed as you are right now, in your body, in your space, emotionally, in your state, in your place of life. We have to have healthy lines of connection into the world that intersects with our characteristics, with our abilities, with our trauma. Yes, because that matters. We need people to not only know that we've had trauma, but to be willing to work with us as we are healing through our trauma. And it doesn't happen in isolation. This is why the last one, social isolation, is so important. It isn't saying that you need to be isolated. It's saying, do people provide opportunities where you're not isolated, whether emotionally, physically, mentally, and so forth? So social wellness is often attached to culture and how we choose to cope. I have heard people say, I don't need anybody. You came into this world by yourself, you got to leave out. And that's such a hopeless perspective to work from, because what that means is that you have decided that because of your lived experience, because of what is happening in your life, that people aren't to be trusted, and so building a relationship with people isn't even worth it. You probably engage more often in transactional relationships and exchanges as opposed to reciprocal exchanges and relationships where you feel fed and nurtured, and you're able to feel vulnerable enough to feed and nurture someone else. So our culture can be the larger context of our culture, socially, who we are based on our religion, our identities, etc. Or it could be your family's culture. What did you learn from your family about interacting, about trusting others, about building relationships? So I want you to think for a moment on these next 5 questions to consider, what is your personal culture? How do you see yourself? Number 2, what matters to your identity? Number 3, did you determine your own identity, or was it taught to you? Number 4, have you felt a lack of belonging as a result of your identity? And then finally, what do you need people to understand about your identity in order for you to truly connect out? What is required for you to trust, for you to be vulnerable, for you to believe in love, for you to take a risk on building another relationship, whether that's a friendship, extending into your family ships, an associateship, which is just as important, or intimate relationships. So before we begin to engage in social wellness, we have to think about the barriers, and so that we can do something about them. I mean, it's not as simple as saying, oh, I want to grow my network, so I'm going to. If it were that easy, everyone would have great networks and would be okay. What ends up happening is that our fear, our past experiences, our limitations and resources often determine the depth at which we can grow our social network, or our comfortability in even choosing to step into that space. So some of the common barriers that we're dealing with today is, number 1, digital overload. We are so dependent upon social media interactions. We're on TikTok to laugh. We're on apps to understand ourselves better. We are communicating through these apps. You know, people send messages, and it's okay to send messages on social media. But if your primary point of contact is through social media with people that you love, how is that nurturing the relationship? So some of this is we have to pull out of our dependence on social media. Number 2, lived experience. I like to call it life's evidence. So somebody broke your heart, somebody lied to you, somebody didn't show up for you and you were disappointed, and so now you have determined everybody is that way. And so you treat everybody with this broad stroke of, yep, you're that because they were this. And so lived experience, aka life's evidence, is truly a barrier, because if you are drawing upon all the past negative experiences to inform future experiences or current experiences, then yeah, you can't expand your network, because you're in defense mode. You're in fear-based thinking mode. Number 3, fear of rejection. We tell children who struggle with making friends that, oh, don't worry, it's going to get better. What a complete lie. It is so difficult to make a friend as an adult. You can't just walk up to a person and say, hey, you seem like a person I could be friends with. I literally did that experiment a couple of years ago, where I would go into social spaces and I would walk up to a woman, because I'm like, I want to have more female friends. And I would walk up to a woman and I would say, oh, you look really nice. You know, I'm trying to make a new friend. And I swear these women looked at me like I had the plague or something. So it's very difficult to make a friend as an adult, because we are all dealing with trust issues. We all have insecurities. We all have things that are blocking our ability to just be like little kids and be like, hey, okay, so you like wings? I like wings too. Let's share some wings and see if we have anything else in common. Number 4, unrealistic expectations. When we meet a person, as soon as they have a flaw, we're like, oh yeah, that's a person that I couldn't get close to. Your friends right now that you love very dearly have flaws. Flaws in their personalities and their characteristics and their traits and how they argue. Everyone has a flaw. So when you meet a new person, whether it's for business, whether it's personal, you have to consider that, okay, they're not going to be perfect. This one person isn't supposed to serve in every aspect of your life. They can only do what they're there to do. So give them the opportunity to show up for you. So now that we've looked at some barriers, let's talk about how to fix them, or not fix, but how we can improve them, how we can get a little bit more comfortable with extending ourselves out so that we can invite someone in. So I want to go back to the questions that I asked at the beginning. How do you define your personal culture? Because your personal culture is going to help you engage better. The first thing I would encourage you to do is always know what your values are. If you know what your values are, then you can lead with your values to help someone understand how they might complement your values, or how they align, how what they're already doing aligns really well with what you're doing. So it makes it easier for you to build a healthy and reciprocal relationship with this individual. So first, know your values. Sit down, identify what your values are. For me, one of the most important values I have is I really like communication. You can say it however you want. I'm not that sensitive with the delivery. I'm not one of those people. It's how you said it. I don't care how you say it. If it's right, it's right, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. You know. So for me, communicate. If you don't like something, if you like something, if you like it this way, tell me, because I can make adjustments in how I'm engaging with you. I already know I have really high standards and expectations that I apply to myself. And because I know that, I also understand that I often inappropriately apply those standards to others. So I need to be communicated with, like, yeah, that doesn't work for me, or no, that doesn't really align with who I am, or, oh, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Communication. The second thing you want to do is to think about how you can strengthen your communications to express yourself clearly with the intention of the relationship. So if you are looking for a friend, it doesn't have to be your best friend, okay? It can just simply be a new friend, someone that you can engage with, you can get to know, you can feel good about sharing aspects of who you are. And so take it slowly and communicate what you like and what you don't like. Some of us are missing out on great relationships because we just aren't communicating what our needs would be. I worked with a client a while ago, and I was like, go make some friends, and I gave them clear steps on how to do it. And they were so concerned with, well, what if they judge me on this? Well, don't tell them about that yet. You can take your time to build trust. You know, it's okay to have friendships that begin superficially and work their way into more depth. Number 3, cultivate empathy. You are so concerned with being rejected by this person. You are concerned with being judged. You are concerned with being hurt. So are they. So if you have those concerns, how are you empathizing with the person you're trying to build this new relationship with, so that they can also be seen and heard? You know, people make mistakes, and we really are quick to be like, well, you made this mistake, and so that's the end of the relationship. Like, it's over. You did this one thing, and we're done. And I think that's, and I used to be one of those people, which is why I'm speaking about it. I definitely, my cutoff game is out of control. Like, it's strong. But I've been working on understanding that a mistake is just that. And the intention is not always to have hurt, but that just was the byproduct because of maybe poor communication, unrealistic expectations, not really understanding what was happening in the moment. Number 3, diversify your circle. I know some of you are, I only hang out with my day ones, no new friends. That's silly. It's silly and it's limiting. If you only hang around people that you've always hung around, who grew up with you, who have very similar or the same experiences, very similar or the same beliefs, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, then you're stuck. And then that leads to you feeling like, well, what is the purpose of all of this? Growth is so important, but we have to be willing to step out and bring in people into our circle just to challenge us, if nothing else, to engage in. I really like healthy debates, like challenge what I have to say, because that's going to make me grow. I like a challenge. So be open to diversifying your circle and accepting a new challenge. And then the final thing is prioritize quantity over quality. You do not have to see a person every day or every week or even every month in order for that relationship to have meaning. My best friend lives in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I'm from. I get back to Detroit maybe 3 or 4 times in the year because of just my work schedule. She's just as busy, so she gets to Cleveland probably 2 to 3 times in a year. But we love each other, and that's never in question. We don't talk for weeks, and then we get on the phone, and we're on the phone for 4 hours, and then we may not talk for another couple of weeks. It doesn't matter about the quantity of what the relationship is. It's more about the quality. Do you really feel felt and seen by the person you're engaging with? Do you connect over laughter, or are you connecting over a book, or are you connecting over family? Are you connecting over business? Some relationships aren't going to be in all, and I think that's where we go wrong with social wellness, is we try to put people in every category of our lives when they only really need to be in that space because that's what works best for them. So I'm going to encourage you over the next week to really try to apply some of these strategies. Think about how you can diversify your social circle. That could be by bringing in someone who is racially or spiritually diverse than you. That could be choosing to have a friendship that's purely about fun, or it could be bringing somebody in who can challenge you, who provides some accountability because they're really great in that area over there, and you could benefit from that. I am so happy that you joined today. I hope it was beneficial. Stay with us as we continue our journey. Next week, I think we're going to go to intellectual wellness. So take good care of yourself, and see you next Monday at 10 a.m.